Welcome to Planet People, a podcast that aims to inspire curiosity and cultivate a deeper connection with the natural world.
We are thrilled to be sharing stories with you that highlight the beauty and importance of protecting our planet's wildlife.
Be sure to follow us on social media and your favorite podcast streaming platform so that you never miss an episode.
What up, Planet People? Hi, Natalie.
Hey, Coral. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in today.
You have your Mojave Desert, California shirt on, ready to go.
Yes. Mojave Desert Beach Club. That's the vibe.
Nice.
Got to
Yeah.
represent for our fun book today.
Yes, this is our second book club episode, and we're really excited. We have on Barret Baumgart, and he wrote the book Yuck, which is about something, yes, maybe everyone thinks is yucky, but we love the Joshua Tree.
The Weird and the Wondrous Joshua Tree. That's what we
That's
get to
right.
talk about today and all of the history that comes along with the understanding the species, really.
And Barrett has also written a book about China Lake, which we've talked a little bit about with Seth Bizardi Sosi in one of our previous episodes. And I feel like we've kind of hit on it a little bit in some of Natalie, like us talking about what you've done for a living.
All the cultural resources do. It's definitely a mysterious place, the Mojave and China Lake in general. And so I think this conversation is fun in that way because it lends itself to that mystery. And the book is a reflection of the mysteries of the desert.
One can scarcely find a term of ugliness that is not apt for this plant, Chase concluded. They didn't just offend the eye, they upset the spirit. A billion crimson sunsets lay buried in the deepest blood memory of humankind. What is beauty or art but an attempt to alleviate an awe that crushes even inside the womb? What is life but a brief sail flapping between two infinite nights? The reddened spectacle of dusk spurs us on. There must be another side at the edge of the planet where the sun goes down and nothing ever dies. To be wistful is to be westful. And yet, after months of grueling effort, early desert pilgrims discovered in California not an enchanted land to the right hand of the Indies, very near to the region of the terrestrial paradise, as Garcia Rodriguez de Montalvo prophesies from Castile, Spain in 1500.
I love that.
Welcome, Barrett, to Planet People Pod. We're so happy to have you on as our second book club member. And you just read a
Awesome.
passage from your lovely book called Yuck. I don't know if you can see this. And it's all about the Joshua Tree, which we love and have talked about so much on this season. And it was just a match made in heaven when I met you during Josh's book reading and your own book reading. And that's how we got connected with Barrett. He was reading as well as Josh. The birth and death of the Weird and Wondrous Joshua Tree. And I can't say it any better than that. The Weird and Wondrous Joshua Tree. I think that we've come to that conclusion on this season. So I'm so happy to have you on the show.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me, guys. Really
Thanks
appreciate
for,
it.
yeah, thanks for being here, Barrett. I love that passage. And my main question that comes from it is, what do you mean by the sentence, to be wistful is to be westful?
Yeah, I mean, we've always been, I mean, it's a huge question, but yeah, I mean, this ancient longing to move west. Yeah, it's a deep, profound statement. And yeah, I've actually stolen it from one of my favorite desert authors, which is kind of a cool thing to confess. If you read the notes at the back of the book, that's actually a line taken from Joseph Smeaton Chase, who has a fantastic, mind-blowing book called California Desert Trails. So there are some sneaky things I do throughout this book. If you read the notes, there's extensive notes at the back, but I do credit him with that in the back. And I feel kind of okay stealing that because then I riff off it further to be wasteful is to be wasteful, as it gets to later.
Yeah. I was going to say, because you mentioned that you say that multiple times through out the book, and then it changes to wasteful, which I think is a wonderful parallel. And yeah, if you could expand on that a little bit more. To be wistful is to be westful, turn to wasteful.
I mean, it's kind of the heart of the book. Yeah, that's the main kind of the main through line. I mean, yeah, so if the book starts with excavating this kind of vast treasure trove of Victorian vitriol directed at the humble, lowly Joshua Tree, which astonished me, excavating this just like vast amount of loathing that I didn't know was there, that I quickly discovered other writers had not collected. None of these quotes were in any books. They were just sitting there, kind of primary documents. The Fremont quote, calling the Joshua tree the most repulsive vegetable, most repulsive tree in the vegetable kingdom, is pretty well known. Um, but yeah, I mean, how did we find the Joshua tree? It was that, like ancient movement westward, going back to the Garden of Eden and onward, and you know manifest destiny before that, the Spanish, Columbus. So a huge topic. But yeah, people moving westward in search of whatever you want to call that, more land, people to colonize, things to destroy, resources to build homes with, and whatever that ancient pole is. They found the Joshua tree, and that ancient movement westward, I think in the book I kind of argue, kind of ended in Los Angeles. And I, kind of terribly make the symbol, the crown of that movement, the world's largest landfill, which is quietly hiding in the middle of Los Angeles. And yeah, we have here run out of land and built a mountain that's 30 stories tall and is purely trash, and no one knows it's there because it's been engineered perfectly and planted with trees.
Wow.
Mm. So for our listeners, your book it's very interesting. It's like I feel like a literary history book of literature about Joshua trees. And then the format of it is so interesting. It's almost like a poetry book as well. What sparked your sort of interest in the Joshua tree, and then just the way that this book is written, and it's almost like a Joshua Tree encyclopedia. It's very interesting, but so poetic at
Yeah,
the same time. Yeah.
yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, I love that interpretation. Yeah, thank you. Um, I mean, what sparked it? I worked briefly for the U.S. Forest Service in the Eastern Sierra Nevada, like on a trail crew, kind of summer internship, and I was expecting to be rehired. It didn't happen, but I think being out there around like 2019, 2010, in the Eastern Sierra Nevada, I was just exploring places on off days where, nobody was, and I didn't particularly want to go. And then I think that happens with a lot of people. You start spending time in the desert, and you start to see that it's not a place of emptiness, and death. And we'll talk about my book, China Lake, if we have time, I guess. But yeah, China Lake kind of epitomizes this hunch that I began to have out there, that there's a lot of incredible stuff kind of hiding. Um, and so, I never really was anyone who, had a true fondness for the Joshua tree, or was, turning it into like a mascot or anthropomorphizing it as something cuddly and fun. I just thought it was weird and kind of moved on. But when I had a wedding planned, April 2020, in Joshua Tree, my fiance Christina was obsessed with the Joshua Tree much more than I was. Loved it out there. Kind of located something profound in that area, where I just was all about the Mojave in general. We had a wedding planned out there. It was canceled due to COVID, and my plan was to write like a brief like wedding favor, like use whatever, write some kind of prose poem, research based, about why we were dragging all these people, you know, out from across the country out to this kind of isolated place in the desert. And so a little bit of research, something quick, easy, poetic. I just started finding stuff that was surprising me. And, with the wedding canceled and then canceled again and then canceled again, right? And not
The COVID
working.
wedding crisis.
Yeah. So if anything came out of that canceled wedding, a couple things, but yeah, definitely this book. Um, and then the form, yeah, it just kind of evolved naturally. I don't know, by necessity. I wasn't trying to write something long. I didn't want to over explain. I didn't want to tell um, people what all of this meant. And I kind of do that in China Lake too, is just kind of work through like juxtaposition, like contrasting things and letting two things a lot of the time sort of stand side by side. Without over explaining, and there's energy, there's sparks, there's contradiction, and so the form of the book, it wasn't something I really wanted to do, but as the research just kept going, it seemed like, yeah, allowing there to be space and having it be sort of fragmented, somehow it maintained energy, that I liked, so I left it.
Yeah, cool. I don't know if I am remembering this correctly, but something that you said when I first met you at the book signing is someone asked a similar question. And you said that you like how the writing is kind of, or the formatting of how it's written, is sort of like jagged, almost like a Joshua tree. Like
Hmm.
it's not in like a normal paragraph form, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, yeah, that's a cool comment. I like that. Yeah, it wasn't intentional. I think it's really cheesy, like when someone writes a poem about a rabbit and then it takes like a rabbit shape or something. There's no
Mhm.
intention to make it, visually approximate its subject. But yeah, I also too, eventually working on it, I was like, it's kind of cool to have this text be a little bit grotesque and, you know, repellent visually, like
Yeah.
its subject, but wasn't like any primary goal or anything. I did want it to be disorienting. I do think that's, if there was anything that I was justifying in my mind, not to over-explain it, but the desert is disorienting. You have to struggle. It's not immediately clear what it's about. There's no clear path. There's no clear goal. I found that if the reader could tolerate it, thankfully it's not too long or whatever. But yeah, if one was disoriented and not sure where they were headed, I thought that was cool, so I stuck with it.
That is cool.
It's cool. It's definitely different, which I love. Like,
Well, and on that same note, how do you want readers to feel then when they're reading your book? Do you want them to feel that sense of disorient and kind of like, oh, this is kind of unusual to read. The desert is unusual too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's the goal. I mean, when I'm writing, a lot of the time, it takes a lot of time to find the next move because I'm waiting for something that will surprise me, something unexpected. And yeah, I hope when someone reads this and some of my other stuff that they might think they know where it's going and what's being set up, and then they turn the page, or on a desert hike or something, you come around a boulder and it's not what you expected. You can't really predict the next move. And in a grander, more idealistic kind of scheme or something, like, yeah, hopefully this space, this book opens a space in a territory where mystery, the unknown, kind of comes in, where it becomes available. I'm not trying to tell you what to think or what it all means, but to open a space where one can discover and feel. What I mean, it's kind of, I like to say I write literature, and I'm shooting for something, you know like art, and uh, art must be attempting something like that. So,
yeah. And up for interpretation as well.
mhm.
Barrett, you mentioned the use of Joshua trees for paper as this historical context to the really timeline of the Joshua tree and how we almost fully exploited it. Can you expand on that on page 37?
Yeah. So the book makes a transition around 37. I I don't even remember the exact transition there, but one of the really interesting things that turned this into a book where the research just kept expanding, was this totally surprising discovery that the Joshua tree was actually, exploited by entrepreneurs beginning in the 1870s. They actually built a series of paper mills at the edge of the Mojave Desert in Los Angeles County. And they began chopping down the Joshua trees and dragging them to these mills to actually be boiled and turned into paper. And so there's some famous photos there in some of these old historical records. You'll hear some people occasionally referring to the Joshua tree as the paper tree, which is strange. So the Joshua tree name won out ultimately, but yeah, for a time there was a project to basically, this infernal, demoniacal, totally loathed tree that all these, settlers and pilgrims had, hated for decades. Someone finally got their shit together and decided it was time to destroy them all. And the strategy was going to be to turn them into paper. And incredibly, the this tree that would bend to no purpose survived this project because I guess its fibers, the elasticity of its fibers was such that it just literally was just too expensive, too gummy to keep cooking. So yeah, totally strange hidden history.
So it didn't really like form into paper then correctly, the way that they were anticipating. Is that right?
I think it worked, and there was funding that came from as like far away as London. There was this London Pacific Fiber Company. There's actually old like newspaper clippings referring to this new innovative paper made from Yucca Brevifolia. I think it was working. It made acceptable paper. It was just too expensive. It's just too much fuel went into cooking it to get the right consistency. And then I actually learned from Chris Clark, who's the host of the 90 Miles from Needles podcast, that he's actually researched this, and something that I guess was the coffin, the nail in the coffin of this project was some barge crossing the Colorado River got like stalled out somehow, and the paper like just rotted there or something. So I think it might have worked, but a few events, kind of tanked this this startup company.
Well, I'm sure they weren't happy about it at the time, but I think we all are happy it didn't work out for them.
I'm definitely
Going with the
happy it didn't
passage.
work out for
Yeah.
them. Just another reason to
Yeah,
exploit nature.
yeah, big time.
I really like the passage you have on page 40. Can you start with botanists and boosters?
Yeah, botanists and boosters. Botanists and boosters, long abused by the stubborn survival of Yucca Brevifolia, must have smiled at the irony, the ingenuity. The infernal trees could now themselves furnish the printed pages that would promote paradise and their own extinction. Tobacco smoke piled on thicker in the parlors and office rooms as the walrus whiskered men whispered the unholy oath, Yucca. All of them picturing its steam above the boils as the corpses billowed into the blue skies over Ravenna. And picture it too, they might have mused, the next installment of your fortune, printed and delivered on bills made from this, the investment itself. Perhaps money did grow on trees, but only the worst ones.
It just really stands out to me. The printed pages that would promote paradise and their own extinction.
Yeah.
It just makes you understand it. The way that it's written, it's so just a reflection of what will be, kind of foreshadowing.
Mhm.
Just the word extinction carries a lot of weight. And that's what we're facing with these trees. Ultimately, by the end of the century, they might not even exist in Joshua Tree National Park, right? Because of the effects of climate change. We know they're seeking higher elevation, higher ground that the national park just may not support at some point in time, right? So the poor Joshua Tree has so much working against it, let alone these early entrepreneurs from the 1870s trying to exploit the tree for paper, which to their attempt failed.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and by the end of the book, I think that's why that passage about the moth is so emotional and it was so difficult to end the book. But yeah, it's not a book driven by plot so much as the next strange informational reveal. But yeah, the Yucca moth does get its moment, and that flight toward those potentially last surviving trees high up on the mountain is a pretty potent image. Yeah, it's kind of you're foreshadowing it. Yeah.
A really great way to tie in that theme of foreshadowing for sure. And the yucca moth can also only exist with the fruit of the Yucca Brevifolia. So another cue of what we lose in this cycle of
Hmm.
life, right? It's just each thing is its own tipping point.
Yeah, and if the Joshua Tree needed to become any stranger and weirder, yeah, lo and behold, it is, yeah, one of the most remarkable um, instances of mutualism in nature. Yeah, both species entirely dependent on the other for its survival. They've evolved together. If one goes, they both go. Kind of a microcosm of our relationship with nature or something. But yeah, it's all
Absolutely.
interwoven. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Barrett, for alluding to the importance of the Joshua Tree in this way and sharing these historical moments that really define how we still have this tree, right? What if we didn't have it anymore because it turned out they made good paper. So it's important to learn these things.
It's fun to celebrate the failures of California entrepreneurs sometimes.
Sure thing. Good take.
Well, a few little passages that I wanted to bring up that I have bookmarked here is that relates to our season. On page 62, in bold letters, you have the refusal to be useful. And I found that interesting, and it sort of relates to a conversation that we had with Colin Barros in the beginning of our season, where we were talking about the different role of lizards and other plants and species in the desert, and like what makes their role important in the ecosystem. And he was like, he challenged us, do they need to be like they should just have the right to live because they are living. And I just love that. It's like the refusal to be useful, like that it doesn't have to be useful to man, or the Joshua tree doesn't have to be useful for us just so that they can survive and thrive, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts with that?
Can you remind me the page number?
62.
Maybe we should read it. What's beneath it?
Yeah, go for it.
It is perhaps a shame that the trees never learned to participate in California's thriving economy, now the fifth largest in the world. Paradise has been blossoming now for a time, and the land boom their paper perhaps helped initiate has never really ceased, but the trees still insist on resisting progress. They still preserve that look of stern penance for old wrongs, for the ancient wrong, the worst of wrongs, the refusal to be useful. It goes on and on. I could definitely talk about that if you guys would like, or
Sure,
if you
yeah.
guys want to discuss or anything.
I
Yeah.
think this is a great discussion point because it points to exactly what Coral was saying, just and what Dr. Colin Barrows was saying to us on our second episode of the season, just about that refusal to be useful. I mean, we need to learn from nature that we don't always need to be productive and useful, right? And so I think this passage points to respecting that process. Definitely. What are your
Hmm.
thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, earlier in the book, we mentioned the westward movement. I mentioned Eden before. We get a couple little Bible quotes in here. God gave us every herb bearing seed and every tree. This was all supposedly put here for our use. That is kind of foundational in Western consciousness is that the natural world has been given to us. And then, today we have this dichotomy, this schism between, well, are we stewards or is it ours to use, to take, to pillage, to exploit? And so it's remains a central question that will relate to the survival of life on this planet, likely. And I said earlier that the Joshua Tree, um, it wasn't anything I was obsessed with. It wasn't, it wasn't a mascot or a great symbol for me. But in the course of writing this book, I realized that what's so heroic and what I truly love, and slowly discovered that is so noble about the Joshua Tree is after, all these cycles of exploitation, after, people moving into this landscape, colonizing it, trying to extract whatever resource they could. They did everything possible with this tree, and it failed and frustrated them at every turn. And so, if the Joshua Tree if there's a way that I've learned to love it and see it as great or transcendent somehow. It's quiet, stubborn refusal to bend toward any human use. And yeah, obviously, as you're saying, we have there's something wrong with our minds and our paradigm if we're sitting around expecting that everything that's placed here should be able to function toward our own ends.
For sure. Yeah, your mention of the Bible verses, it's interesting. This could be a whole other podcast episode, but um yeah, I find it interesting when people bring Bible verses to the surface to sort of aid in their arguments because I feel like there's always one that's going to like contradict it. And um, in Genesis, there's also a verse that says the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to till it and keep it. Um,
Hmm.
there's definitely Bible verses to talk about how we can be responsible and stewards of the planet as well, which I think is forgotten a lot of the time. So it's definitely a good point.
Yeah, and it's important to remember. And yeah, the Bible notoriously capable of supporting any argument or belief. So um,
Yeah.
yeah, careful with that. But yeah, definitely it is in there. Stewardship for sure.
Hmm.
And there's kind of this sense of pilgrimage woven throughout, especially back on that first passage we read on 17. Do you think that we were kind of idly stumbling towards paradise and didn't realize it, or this concept of pilgrimage and Eden, like where do those kind of overlap? I'm curious about your idea of this holiness in the desert.
Damn. I mean, that's a huge question and would get me to reveal my deepest, darkest beliefs, but yeah, I can't do that. But I don't know. I mean, on the surface level, it's really interesting to think about. The book's kind of a history of Los Angeles and in California in the
Mhm.
West. I think we have, in this continent and in the West, like inherited something that is just, absolutely fantastic and glorious. I mean, the landscape of Western America is absolutely transcendent, contains everything. To just zoom in on California, I mean, it has the tallest point in the United States. It has the lowest point, Death Valley, Whitney. It has the tallest tree. It has the oldest tree. It has the ugliest tree. It has the most massive tree, bristlecone, sequoia, redwood, Joshua tree. Um, there's never been snowpack measured on Earth supposedly deeper than, some point around, Mammoth Mountain. It's awesome. There's these extremes. Is it is it God's chosen land? Were we chosen? Is this truly paradise? I'm not going to make that argument. But the bigger thing is, yeah, nature itself. What we have been given, mysteriously by something, a natural process or something that transcends our understanding. Yeah, I mean, we're here in the midst of, totally dependent on natural processes. Every moment in our body, everything living is being sustained through, you know, energy and metabolism of like astonishing complexity. It's insane. We don't explode like and fall apart every second. And from the bottom to the top, yeah, I mean, we're in the midst of this totally awesome natural world that we're totally dependent on. So I don't know. My hope in writing, if I am a nature writer, if I keep doing this, is not to worship nature and venerate it too hard and too easy and too quickly, but to make a book like this that makes you kind of disorients you and maybe wakes you up to kind of the things I'm describing here. But again, super idealistic project. But
Well, I love
that's
that
nature
you,
writing, I guess.
going back to kind of what I was saying in the beginning, I love that you sort of just gathered everything written about the Joshua tree and then continued onward with it. And it's like kind of a look into this timeline of society and the way that we view nature and appreciate it. Because it kind of starts out with how, yeah, I mean, it's in the title, like how grotesque these Western pilgrimage people of all different types, um, viewed the tree. And then once you get later into the book, we have on page 80, you say Joshua Tree is a bridge, and it talks about how artists use it as a huge sense of inspiration. And, it's kind of this resurgence of appreciation that we're seeing. And I think everyone here can speak to that. I mean, it's like a rite of passage if you live in Southern California to go to Joshua Tree and probably have a few magic mushrooms along the way. So,
Mhm.
a lot of
Definitely.
art and
Totally.
fun times are happening from the Joshua Tree and what it gives us.
Well, I love on page 76 this turnaround, right? I don't know if we want to give away too much to the readers, but that would be another nice passage to read. I just love that it's describing the moment that Joshua trees are finally having after pilgrims first had these horrendous view of the tree. I mean, use your imagination. Not all trees are tall and full of leaves.
Yeah, would you like me to read that again?
76. That would be great.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Instead, today, the majority of the Joshuas are protected. Since its founding appropriately on a hot Halloween afternoon in 1994, Joshua Tree National Park, home to the majority of the Mojave's infernal trees, has risen steadily in popularity, becoming now one of America's most trafficked national parks. Attendance increases nearly every year and has doubled over the past half decade, welcoming nearly 3 million annual visitors. Far from obliteration, the Joshua Tree, it would appear, is being reborn. The Joshua Tree is having a moment, says Condé Nast Traveler, luring makers and shakers with its peculiar brand of magic. Let the Joshua Tree have its moment, says the Los Angeles Times. If one small town can embody everything that's cool, writes GQ, it's Joshua Tree.
Love it. Maybe we're loving it to death now.
Yeah,
Hopefully, we're
it
loving
seems like
it
that.
to protection or something.
Yeah.
I hope, at least.
Well, 3 million annual visitors is extensive.
Hmm. I feel like we have sort of a bonus, two in one with you, Barrett, because you also wrote a book called China Lake before Yuck. And I would love to talk a little bit about that. We've mentioned China Lake multiple times in the season, but we haven't talked about it extensively. And unfortunately, I do not have a copy of it, so I have not read it, but you and I have talked about it a little bit, and I would love for you to let our listeners know what China Lake is about and sort of the historical importance of China Lake.
Yeah, China Lake is a really incredible place that I don't think many people in California, and definitely not beyond that, are aware of. It's the Navy's largest worldwide land holding. It's like 1.2 million acres, and it's out in the Mojave. It's really, without traffic, you could probably get there in 2 hours from LA. And it controls 15, I think 15% of California's airspace. It's this huge, important facility, and it's connected to um, like another testing range in the Pacific. And yeah, I stumbled upon this topic through the Native American rock art that's out there. There it's thought to be the largest concentration of Native American rock art in the Western Hemisphere. China Lake, it largely covers a volcanic mountain range called the Coso Range. The Navy actually has a geothermal plant out there. It's the second largest in the United States, powers the entire base. It's a totally volcanically active region. And in these narrow lava canyons that cover a large chunk of the base, there's just this astonishing concentration of Native American rock art. There are basically all petroglyphs, so they're packed into black basalt that's covered in desert varnish. And weirdly, it's overwhelmingly bighorn sheep.
Oh,
And
wow.
this has been studied extensively, by many archaeologists, and going back to 1950s and 60s. Um, Tons of theories about what this meant. That's a huge topic. But yeah, my having driven past it and wondered about it, and then finding that the Navy's quietly, sitting on this thing that would be a national park or a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and literally there's almost no access to it. And no one knows it's there. Um, and like the visitation in Joshua Tree, it's a double-edged sword. Like you want to see people appreciate nature. They're also destroying it. This Navy base is, you know, who knows what they're doing out there ultimately. You can't go see the art. It's kind of a bummer that I don't think Native Americans are given really the amount of access that they're supposed to be provided. Never mind that all that land was taken from them, and it's the most significant place on the earth for tribes in that area. It's like literally their Garden of Eden. Um, yeah, lo and behold, I mean, the art is perfectly preserved because the Navy doesn't allow anyone out there. So make what you will of that. But I could go on and on. There's so much to talk about, but the book started there, and it's a book about climate change. If I could say it really quickly, I connected with an archaeologist who's really brilliant. This guy, David Whitley. He's written many books. He's very well known. He was the first American inside Chauvet Cave in France when it was discovered in 1996. And he's been studying the Coast Range since the 1980s. I think he wrote his PhD thesis at UCLA on the Coast Range. But incredibly, according to David Whitley, no one has read the ethnography of California. And if you listen to the actual statements of Native Americans, and you're inclined to believe them that they have any connection to this place and know what it might be about, they constantly refer to a connection between bighorn sheep and rainmaking. So David Whitley actually read the ethnography. And when a bighorn sheep is killed, it's supposed to rain. So you might be able to say that there was for tens of thousands of years some sort of religious, spiritual, shamanic rain-making practice happening here. And it might have been like a central pilgrimage point throughout the Great Basin. There's trails coming from all over the Great Basin to this area. And the U.S. Navy, now it gets conspiracy in the book. It's really weird and interesting, but the U.S. Navy studied like weather modification there. A super famous creepy project called Project Popeye came out of China Lake through a head scientist there named Pierre Saint Amand, who developed a technique. So he claims he perfected it when Congress dragged him into Washington to testify how the hell the United States was secretly spraying all over Vietnam silver iodide to try and flood the Ho Chi Minh Trail. So when I connected that there was this crazy weird history of weather modification, weather manipulation happening at this scary military base no one's ever heard of, and that on this thing there's also this crazy potential um, vast collection of rock art that might be referring to the same thing. That was the 5,000 word essay I wanted to write, but it turned into a 300-page book.
Yeah, well, it
Cool.
sounds like there's a
So
lot of material
sorry.
there. That's awesome. It's really so interesting, yeah, that there's this sort of historical proof of trying to manipulate the weather.
Yeah, it's super strange. Yeah, and I mean, all cultures throughout the world, through all time, have attempted to control the weather. If it doesn't rain, everyone dies. You need the rain. Super fascinating that this is basically the driest place like on the planet. Like we're talking about the edge of Death Valley here, and so that gets into Native American religion, symbolic inversion. Why would you go to a super dry place to make rain? Koso means fire. There's volcanoes everywhere out there. It's just, I mean, it's an extreme, fascinating environment. And so it was really easy for that research to just keep going. And it eventually turns into a book about, you know, solar radiation management or solar geoengineering, which is, again, crazy topic. The IPCC included this in there for the first time in their, what do they call it? The interpanel. What is it called? I'm blanking on that. Whatever those huge annual reports are that they produce. I'm embarrassed that I'm blanking on that, but this has been something that was never supposed to be in print, a last ditch resort thing that no scientist was supposed to legitimize or ever speak about. And so the book is kind of this, it ultimately builds toward an exploration of this, kind of taboo area of climate mitigation, but it's not mitigation, it's intervention. Solar geoengineering would refer to spraying the stratosphere essentially with sulfur aerosols to turn the sky white to reflect sunlight back out to space to artificially cool the planet. So this is a very strange book with a lot of material. So sorry, I'm blabbing on and on. I could just talk to myself about this forever. Thankfully, I distilled it into 300 pages, and you should read that.
Cool. No, China Lake is fascinating. I've done some work out there for the USGS on Fort Irwin, and we can access China Lake. So I've driven across the dry lake bed before, and it's pretty wild.
That's so
It's,
cool.
yeah, there's just a dry lake bed for miles and miles, and you can just keep going. I got out of the car, and there was nothing around me but my shadow.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. It's pretty mysterious, that part of the desert.
Were you were you able to see the rock art in any point?
I have seen some of the rock art out there by Black Mountain. Yeah, and there's actually some really beautiful, like rare wildflowers out there as well. During bloom season, there's some really big fields of desert candle that pop off behind Black Mountain, and there's a bunch of tortoises over there. Some tortoise biologists and the mafia will say Black Mountain is the most dense area of tortoises in California, but no one really knows where that is, and it's hard to access, but I'm sure you know where it is after writing that book.
I do not.
No?
No, that's so cool.
Yeah, you should get out there sometime. I think Black Mountain it's BLM land. You can get there by accessing it through Barstow. So,
Cool.
yeah, I've always wanted to take a little Planet People trip out there. Maybe we'll have to read some spooky stories and around the
Yeah,
fire and take a little Planet People desert trip.
I would love to do that. Yeah, I would love to go out there.
Well,
Any desert excursion, I'm down.
totally. What inspired you to write about China Lake?
I mean, it was the discovery of that juxtaposition, like I described before, Yuck, all these creative sparks in just setting these two kind of contradictory things alongside each other. The first thing was, so, here we are just studying, with the most sophisticated weapons on Earth being studied out there, in the same place as we're preserving this art. So here we are, perfecting the technology of erasing man from the present while we're out here, protecting her ancient traces or whatever. So that irony, that contradiction, then yeah, the weather making kind of coincidence was just weird. So yeah, one handhold to the next, things just kept getting weirder, stranger, more contradictory. And yeah, it was easy. It was easy to keep building that book um,
Lots of
toward
stories.
a dark conclusion, but a fun one.
It's funny you mention just this juxtaposition, really, and how we're using all of these weapons out there for mass destruction. Really, that's what it feels like. That's why we're out there moving tortoises out of the way. Um, and the town closest to China Lake is probably Ridgecrest or Barstow. And in Ridgecrest, ironically enough, in the middle of the desert, they have the highest concentration of like PhD people in the country, or like one of the highest concentration because of all the people doing like nuclear engineering for the military. So a lot of really smart people live in Ridgecrest and tons of tortoise biologists. So kind of just to your point that there is this juxtaposition of really smart people doing really bad things for the environment and for the military. So
That's so interesting. Yeah, the PhD concentration there, I don't doubt it. Oh, and then it gets stranger. I mean, I'm kind of on a blacklist in that town because I've written about their extremely cheesy, tacky, poorly executed petroglyph festival. So I was there. Like I wrote something for Vice, Vice Travel, like in 2014 when I had finished this, and I was obsessed with the topic. And they started this petroglyph festival. Basically, there's quotes from the city saying they want to turn Ridgecrest into America's Machu Picchu. They just basically, as with the Joshua Tree, just exploited the shit out of this art and have done so in a really like kind of tasteless way. But I think the Navy should work with the local tribes and create a tribal park where, something where that land actually, in some sort of way, can be given back to the tribes in some sort of agreement where the tribes can make money off of guiding people out to that area to view that art, which actually belongs to them. The Navy will never do that, but that would be an amazing compromise. And maybe Ridgecrest can make a few dollars as well.
That would be a good compromise. And I feel like a positive, forward-looking kind of perspective on an otherwise kind of traumatic existence with the military basically controlling access and for the Native Americans, right? So
Mhm.
what gives you hope for the desert and people recognizing the importance of these lands and these cultural resources?
Yeah, I mean, they, they've been there forever. It's a vast, inhospitable landscape. I mean, we're accessing it more and more, like with Joshua Tree, and we're seeing every year more and more trees get destroyed. I don't know what gives me hope. I guess you have to hope that as more awareness and access happens and more people become passionately engaged, that it doesn't turn into Disneyland and
Yeah.
resources being trampled, but a podcast like this with people actually passionately and authentically engaged and spreading information and knowledge that makes people inspired, excited to conserve, and others launch off on their own trajectory to spin new stories, dig up new research, and write their own book, and yeah, just deepen the awareness, the respect.
Yuck gives me hope because that helps to deepen the awareness and the respect. I mean, you have to educate people to care about these resources, right? So,
Yeah, and these are just awesome places. Yeah, I mean, as you hear me just bloviating about China, like these are awesome places. So yeah, we should respect them and get excited and learn as much as we can about them. And yeah,
Well, what has been your most special moments out in China Lake and then also with the Joshua Tree?
a special moment out in China Lake. Hmm.
can the public access China Lake?
Yeah, that's a good question. The Matarango Museum in Ridgecrest used to do public tours, but they come and go with COVID, with threats of terrorism. I'm not sure if they're doing them right now, but that would be the place to look. There's a museum in Ridgecrest called the Matarango Museum. That would be the only way. And I would encourage people to do it. I've been on several, and they're generally, I mean, they're generally respectful. I wouldn't say that there's like great information coming out from the people guiding the tours always, but they're respectful overall. I'm giving 2-star reviews left and right.
That's all right.
Um,
Gotta be honest.
It's Ridgecrest. It's in the middle of the desert. So you've been on a few tours though.
yeah, I have. Yeah, I've been out there once with David Whitley. I've done 2 of the Matarango tours. I guess if I have to tell another little story that gets weird, the, the I guess one time I went out there with David Whitley, I asked him, I was trying to find a way to finish China Lake, to finish that book. And I asked him, is there any place like in the suburbs in California where there's just like some just crazy sacred Native American rock art like hanging out like behind a Starbucks or something? And I had some fantasy of him saying like, oh yeah, like I trust you. I'll tell you, like behind your high school, there's actually this crazy painting of something. I was expecting like in all this vast area, there has to be something. Um, and what he ended up saying was, yeah, there actually is in the suburbs of Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley, like ground zero of this, like the great American suburb, the most banal place on earth. There is like a massive amount of Native American rock art and um, the end of the San Fernando Valley, like West Hills, Chatsworth. And I guess I mentioned that because that's become the topic of my third book. And I didn't realize it at the time. It's very weird, but yeah, he's the neighborhood he was pointing to is like where my like fiance grew up. And I accidentally like moved into a house there, like just like a quarter mile from the exact site he was referring to at the time. So just not great odds, weird, fun, and kind of cool to see, yeah, years later out there having a conversation that, unbeknownst to me, I moved right to that place and my rock art research kind of continues. So that's just strange. It's front of mind right now as I'm
Wow.
working on that book.
It's interesting to see your personal connections with each of these books and how it's like led you to, sort of like your personal life with romance and, the wedding and it bringing you to these different conclusions and like creative processes with these books. That's cool. It's fun to look
Yeah,
back
thank
on
you.
moments
I
like it's fun to look back on moments like that where you can kind of pinpoint like some foreshadowing of what's to happen next.
Yeah, it's super strange. Yeah, and yeah, I mean this book that I'm working on would in some ways be like kind of a sequel to China Lake. I wouldn't really try and sell it that way because no one bought China Lake, but you know, it is in some ways a continuation. Up in those hills, there is a facility owned by Boeing today where the initial tests for like the Saturn V rocket took place. Werner von Braun, the Nazi SS scientist, his first job when he was smuggled out of Germany was to rebuild the V2 rocket and the rocks up there around this rock
Oh
art. So
wow.
there's some strange connections between um, the shamanic art created by the Chumash up there and the space program. I mean, I'm not going to get like Eric von Daniken ancient alien new age stuff, but it is you know many archaeologists and people in the space program have kind of sat there and scratched their heads like at this coincidence. It's very strange.
Wow. That's cool. Getting into some
Yeah.
Area 51 and like ancient Egypt pyramid stuff going on
Area 51 vibes for sure.
here.
Yeah, it's called Air Force Area 12, actually, the spot,
Okay,
something like that.
cool.
And Barrett, one last question I have just about the book. I really am curious what inspired the book art. That's something we haven't touched on yet, and I think it's beautiful. Everybody, if you're watching on YouTube, look at this beautiful book. I mean, it has the classic desert sun drop. Is that sunrise or sunset? Either or,
Uh,
up for interpretation, right?
Sunset.
Sunset. And I just think it's stunning with that Joshua tree in the center.
Yeah, thanks so much. I wanted it to be, yeah, dramatic and cool. I wanted to have kind of a vintage feel. I gave kind of a, what would you call it? Yeah, like a board, a mood board, or yeah, a bunch of vintage book covers to a friend who's a talented graphic designer, and she put it together. So yeah, all credit
Oh,
goes to Amber. Yeah,
cool.
she totally got what I was aiming for, and yeah, lots of lots of compliments on that book cover. I'm really grateful to her.
It's very retro. It matches my cast even.
Perfect.
Well,
That's
it is
great.
stunning. I mean, it definitely, I feel like if I saw this in a bookstore while I was shopping around in Joshua Tree, I would grab it because first of all, it's beautiful, and second of all, it's a work of art, which is fun to have as like a coffee book table too.
It's awesome. Yeah,
Job well done.
thank you.
So I'm sure our audience is dying to know, did the wedding ever happen?
That's a crazy question. No, we never did it. No, we were perpetually engaged. Yeah, after the ship rotted in the harbor, and everyone swooped in after COVID, all the people, friends that were waiting, everything filled up, and we were just kind of like, all right, like what are we gonna do? And the years have passed. So yeah, that's the truth. We have not gotten married. We're just
Oh my
perpetually
goodness.
engaged. Kurt Russell,
So
Goldie
no,
Hawn vibes.
so there's no save the date then.
There was in 2020. Yeah.
Yeah.
Drama. It's more drama that way.
Wow, so you'll have to keep us posted whenever you guys do end up going for it. Would you still do Joshua Tree or
Yeah.
something else?
We probably would. Yeah. We'd probably just try and put it together again. Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny.
There's this really cool wedding
Yeah.
venue called Nowhere, California. They do some cool weddings. I don't know if you're looking at other venues, but
Okay. Thanks for the tips, guys.
yeah,
California.
Natalie is planning a wedding right now, so we're
I
very
am.
Oh yeah.
That's
popped
right.
into the
Is
wedding planning.
are
Good
you
for
going to
you guys
nowhere or what?
though, for just saying, fuck COVID. Fuck that. Like, I mean, I feel you. We've been engaged. We're going on almost a year. Well, December 2024, and we're getting married in October. So I'm like, it's kind of nice having a long engagement. No pressure.
Yeah,
Don't have to spend a bunch of money
yeah,
on the wedding.
yeah. It's strange. Yeah, we're all constantly scratching our heads and wondering what our families actually think, but we are happy, and
That's pretty funny.
I guess it's kind of a joke. Yeah, but I mean, I'm not sure what the joke is.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to get back to our listeners and readers. If there's a take two in your next book, maybe we'll hear the happy ending.
Yeah, we'll probably do it 2030. If it was 2020, we'll do it. We'll circle back. And, yeah.
Nice. There you go.
That's funny. Well,
Well,
cool. Thank you so much for being on the show and being a part of our book club, series. It's been so fun. And
Mhm.
like I said, we have sort of a two-in-one with you with Yuck and China Lake and um, all things desert related.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me. And yeah, I don't know what it is. It just it's happened spontaneously. There's just so much out there and so much material, and it's I shouldn't say I'm grateful to the Mojave, but yeah, there's some weird synergy and energy exchange happening between me and that place, and I really love it out there. And I'm glad you guys are bringing more attention to
Mojave Desert.
Well
Nice.
played.
Yep. There's no doubt a lure of that place, and it calls you back sometimes, and you don't totally know why, but you can't ignore the silence that it invites and allowing that silence to become a reflection and how that becomes a vision is this beautiful book, Yuck. So if you haven't already, Planet People, go buy Yuck and make sure you get in touch with Barret. Barret, how can we find you?
I'm on Instagram, posting a lot on there, making some informational reels occasionally. Barret Baumgart is the handle, and on Substack I have a blog. It's called Dumpster Fires. Weirdly, I used to live in LA, over an alley that had a dumpster fire every day. So that's kind of a blog about Los Angeles and where I drop kind of current writing and research. But those would probably be the two main spots, but I'm other places as well.
Awesome.
Awesome. We love our Substack. I'll have to subscribe.
Please do.
I will. I will. I'm a big Substack user. I'm trying to get more into it. I think it's a great place for writers and just people with more philosophy that cannot be found on other platforms. So,
Well, should we end with the Passage of the Moth? It's so good.
You could, yeah, if you want me to read it. I've never read it out loud. I
Yeah.
don't know if I'll do a good job. Multiple people told me it made them cry. So, the lonely moth. She flies above the night's floor. There is no reward of nectar. It is a life that lasts 5 days, a brief spark, a mere flicker held out to the night's hand. If she could relieve her burden, she would fly farther, but the eggs, they weigh her down. Who knows how she sounds the night's depths? But somewhere out there at the edge of the cold, at the top of the mountain, among the molten crags, there hides perhaps a few more ghouls, their long, starving arms held out in hopes of alms. They wait and brood beneath the moon's white nightmare, holding out a few fetid blooms in that bouquet of daggered hands. Come, they seem to say, come, come find me. We are waiting for you, have waited since eternity began. You long to know us. You cannot guess what wealth we hide. Come and take it if you dare. We dare you. And so we climb upon the dust of this planet, far beyond the waning mystery, deep inside the motel's crackling neon, trampling the wings. We keep coming. The crowds keep coming, coming. No one seemed to know the precise origin of the term yucca. The end.
Yay.
really powerful.
Definitely a powerful ending.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, it makes you think. All the best
Yeah,
art
that's not fun to
should.
read.
You read it well.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you guys and your enthusiasm for the book. It's really, really
Yeah,
sweet.
of
Absolutely.
course.
Thank you for being on the show and for your enthusiasm in this conversation.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. It's a win-win.
Yeah. On to the next book.
Thanks for making me read that passage. I've been scared to read it out loud. It's fun.
Oh, well, what better way than a podcast where there's a bunch of listeners for the
Yeah.
first time.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Planet People. We are thrilled to have you as part of our community of wildlifers who care about protecting the planet for future generations to enjoy.
We hope that by listening, you feel inspired to connect with nature and become a steward of the planet by getting involved and taking action with your local community conservation organizations. Until next time, stay positive, Planet People.
This episode was produced by Natalie Jean Sybil, Coral Carson, and Hugh Carr. Directed and edited by Coral Carson. Theme song by Hugh Carr under the artist name Flama. Thank you, team.